topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello and welcome. Glad you could join us. I'm Bill Martinez, and we're going to talk about, one of those lingering conspiracies, I guess you could still say, because I believe that there's a lot of truth that has not been discovered. And clearly, after today, you'll realize a lot of truth has been hidden for whatever purpose. You can decide for yourself after you hear this report. Rachel Alexander is going to be joining us in just a moment. She's a former assistant attorney general for the state of Arizona, a corporate attorney for companies like GoDaddy Software, and a special assistant deputy county attorney for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. She was voted one of the 50 best conservative columnists. She's a regular contributor to Town Hall, and she says a recovering attorney. And that's for a whole nother day to discuss. And we need to have a therapist with us at the same time, because then we can talk about my recovering, from my 50 years of broadcasting. Anyway, she's a political columnist and founder and editor of Intellectual Conservative. Rachel Alexander, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us. See, do we have volume on you? I'm not hearing you. Rachel, can you hear me okay?
Thanks for having me on. The internet connection kind of slipped a little bit there. So hopefully we won't run into any more issues. They just kind of slipped a little bit.
Okay, no worries. Well, we're connected now. As I was mentioning earlier, the thing about all controversies, what really buttresses them up is the fact that truth is hidden. I have often said that in the absence of fact, opinion, and rules, and there's still a lot of opinion around George Floyd's death, right?
Yeah, and I sort of thought, okay, when Ben Shapiro started asking Trump to pardon Derek Chauvin, I thought, what's everybody saying? And everybody was saying, oh, Ben's just trying to get attention. And so I didn't really think a whole lot of it until some of my law enforcement friends told me about this incredible documentary that came out last year called The Fall of Minneapolis. And you can watch it free on YouTube. So I went and watched it, and I was just blown away. I mean, I went from thinking, Derek Chauvin probably did something wrong, to thinking this man did everything by the book. He was one of their top police officers.
Exactly. And trainers and everything. Yes, exactly.
His trainer came back and said he's one of the top recruits he's ever had. And the technique that he used on George Floyd was perfectly authorized by the Minneapolis Police Department, despite their lies claiming that it wasn't.
Right. Well, the documentary you're talking about was one that was produced by reporter Liz Collins, a CBS affiliate in Minneapolis, St. Paul. And after bringing the truth, they kind of took away her welcome mat, didn't they?
Well, apparently she is married to a law enforcement guy who was one of the head guys in the union there, and because she gave fair reporting to the police, they wanted to get rid of her, and so she believes that is why they eliminated her job, because she was willing to come forth and tell the truth about these law enforcement incidents and not repeat MSM talking points.
Well, it was clear. And I got to tell you, Rachel, when this story broke initially, and of course, Liz does a great job in documenting every step and what happened along the way, how evidence, I mean, you're an attorney, to keep evidence out of the court. I mean, you had to know right away this was kind of a kangaroo operation, as they would say, right?
Right. I mean, this crooked, sleazy judge, Peter Cahill, would not let the jury see any of the evidence that the restraining technique that George Floyd used was in the training manuals. And he also kept out evidence of George Floyd's extensive criminal history, which included violence, things like, aggravated drug assault.
Mhm. Well, I got to tell you, even the autopsy and Bodden, who is well known, I was surprised with his report because it seemed to be out of character and prejudiced in omitting the fact that George Floyd had such a high level of fentanyl in his system. I mean, there were contributing factors, as you said. Even when I first saw saw the video of Chauvin where he was at and had his where his leg was at, and you could tell there was some prejudicial, let's just put it that way, camera shots of it. But then when you got a more of a better perspective, let's say, of it, you go, okay, well, I could see that, and I could see why he was always looking. He was surrounded by a bunch of people yelling and screaming at him. I think if I was in that situation, I'd kind of have my head on a swivel as well. I don't think he was, being nonchalant and thinking, okay, I'm just going to pin this guy down. And like you said, the technique that he was using was one that he was trained to use. It was in the book, the standard operating procedure for them in restraining people. And so he did it by the book, but they wouldn't even allow the book. His mother said they wouldn't even allow the book to be entered into evidence.
And some of these characters admitted things like the fact that Chauvin's knee wasn't really on his neck and it wasn't on any structural parts. It wasn't on a part that would have killed him, basically. And there was no bruising after the fact. But, they admitted that the amount of fentanyl in his system was almost 4 times the amount that would kill somebody. So he could have died from the fentanyl alone. And at least, the autopsy report pretty much admitted that he probably died from a combination of all the drugs in his system, his, arteries being blocked, all the problems there, combined with him fighting back with the police, because one of the officers told him at least 6 times to get out of the vehicle, and he would not do it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so, and even still, when they removed him from the vehicle, it's not like all of a sudden they just yanked him. I mean, you see them, kind of sitting him down and trying to be sensitive to his complaint about claustrophobia, all these things. And he was just revving himself up. And of course, what I think one of the autopsy reports had indicated that his agitation and his increased agitation exacerbated the problem and could have possibly exacerbated his death because of the fentanyl.
And his friends were, yelling at him, just do what the police say. I mean, it was a pretty minor arrest overall. There's no reason why he couldn't have just cooperated, but because he was so high on drugs, obviously wasn't thinking coherently. And a previous officer who had arrested him another time testified that that's exactly how he behaved the last time, fighting back, refusing to cooperate. But nobody will, admit that it was the fentanyl that killed him, combined with fighting. He can be seen kicking one of the police officers. I mean, these are serious crimes that he was committing.
Right. And the other thing to consider here is that George Floyd was not a small man. This is a big guy. What did he weigh? Was he about 240 or something like that? Maybe I know well over 6 foot. So he's a big boy there. And these police have their hands full, and his resistance was just adding to the problem.
At some point, I'm sure these police officers might have been afraid for their lives. I mean, you watch the body cam video, which was only released because, Liz Collins requested it. The Minneapolis police weren't going to ever show you the full story. And so when you see all the violence and how much he resisted, I mean, it's just astronomical. I mean, he was out of control. I wouldn't have wanted to be a police officer there trying to restrain him. because he was definitely going to do everything he could not to get in that squad car.
Right. Well, that singular event, and you used the right term, out of control, really spun everything out of control. It spun the city out of control. It spun the leadership out of control. I mean, they're saying things that are just flat out. I mean, the police chief just lying blatantly and without any kind of consequence. It's just amazing how it was almost like they all got together and said, okay, here's the storyline, because we're afraid that we can't control a riot, because, we're going to, they're going to go crazy. And as part of the sacrifice, not only they sacrifice Chauvin, but they sacrifice a police station.
They gave over that whole precinct to the violent rioters. And you can see these police officers fleeing on foot, being chased by rioters, throwing flaming objects at them because they didn't have enough squad cars to get out of there. And
Right.
so, and they were instructed to ignore all the violence. When they saw all the looting, they would get orders. Don't do anything, just take notes. Because you're right. I mean, the video shows how the Governor Tim Walz and the mayor of Minneapolis colluded together to state that it was all, the police officer's fault and Chauvin did nothing wrong. And then they lied about how long he was under the maximal technique restraint. They said it was more than 6 minutes. I mean, there's a video clip of Kamala Harris, stating it was a lot longer than 6 minutes. I mean, they just blatantly lie and they get away with it and nothing happens to them. A normal person would go to prison for lying about a death like that, who is in a high level political or, law enforcement position.
Well, and here it is. I mean, they take I would say one of their own. I mean, this is a law enforcement officer, great record. I mean, he, like you said, a stellar law enforcement officer, and they throw him under the bus. I mean, way under the bus, and abandon him along with the three others that were part of this arrest process. And it's just unbelievable what they have done and putting them all into jail. And you think this cannot be. And as I'm watching this unfold, from my purview years ago, as this was coming down, and here it is, the precinct is surrendered, kind of almost like I remember in Baltimore during the Summer of Love, because all the cities were on fire under, as CNN declared, a mostly peaceful protest, as you'll recall. And this was one of those mostly peaceful protests that even Governor Walz's wife said that she loved having the windows down so that she could smell, all the burning that was happening in her city, in her home state. It's like, how bizarre. I mean, are these people out of their minds?
I feel like the left just loves to take down white males, and they thought this, especially white males in law enforcement. So this was their perfect opportunity. But where they screwed up was the officer who actually arrested him was Black. Another one of the officers at the scene was a minority.
Yeah.
So it wasn't about racism. That's where they look like they have egg on their face. And the mainstream media is not very good about pointing out that the officer who arrested him was Black. Chauvin arrived on the scene later, but because he was the one involved in the maximal technique restraint, he was an easy target.
Right. Well, even, and I hate to even refer to it, but that's what they refer to it as, the maximal restraint. It didn't seem that was all that maximal, really. I mean, you've got him on handcuffs. He's lying down. He could have been in the squad car, been fine. He already would have been transported and everything. But he was acting up. And I just think that, the police officers were not aware of what all was involved. They didn't realize that he had consumed drugs to this amount. I mean, as you said, and you referenced earlier that there was an officer who had arrested him, I think, a year or two earlier, and they had video of him swallowing these drugs. And because they were aware, right, that he swallowed the drugs, they had EMS right away on the scene. Otherwise, he probably would have had an event then.
And in this time, the EMS did not arrive on the scene in time, even though it was only located a couple blocks
Couple
away. There was
blocks
a
away.
miscommunication. Yeah, there was a miscommunication, but nobody's blaming them. Nobody's blaming the paramedics, and everybody, they even came out publicly and said the paramedics did nothing wrong. But you have experts in the documentary stating that they did screw up. And, I want to point out, too, that famous line, "I can't breathe." He was already saying that when he was still in the squad car before he was pulled out and had the technique used on him. So he was
Right.
already claiming he couldn't breathe before the technique. And he's obviously claiming that because he's got this arterial condition and he's super high. He lied to the cops when they asked him if he was on anything. He said no. And you can see him in the video. You can see something white in his mouth that he's trying to swallow.
Right. Well, it almost seemed that his commentary and his response was something that had been practiced, or that he had, because he's gone through this drill enough. It was like he knew what to say. I mean, it wasn't, to me, I didn't read that as a genuine reactive response. It was something that it was like he was almost, playing a part in a role, something that he had practiced and maybe had been effective for him in the past in dealing with the police. Like even from the very beginning, "Oh, you're not going to shoot me, are you? You're not going to shoot me. I've been shot." I mean, the whole dialogue that is all right there in that video that Liz captured. I think it's just, it's quite revealing and undeniable, isn't it?
Because he lied about saying, "You're not going to shoot me. I got shot last time." He was not shot last time by the police when they arrested him. And that former officer testified to that. So exactly, he knows what he was doing. He was playing a little political game with the police. He was setting it up. And maybe it's worked before in the past when the police pulled him over, because he's obviously been arrested many times. He just plays the victim and gets the police to get scared and back off. And some of the officers were seen talking, sedating, we realize, we could be in trouble with this because they're going to, use it against us and frame it how they want to use it and make it look like we were being bad officers.
Yeah. And that's, that's insightful on their part. They saw this train wreck coming. As I said, as I was observing this, I thought, oh, surely they're going to arrive to the truth. And when they didn't, and they were making up these things. And of course, for me, another red flag was Benjamin Crump. Benjamin Crump, who lied so blatantly on that South Florida case, if you recall, with, I forgot his name all of a sudden, Trayvon Martin, the Trayvon Martin case. And Benjamin Crump was collusive in so many ways. How this guy still has his bar license is beyond me, Rachel.
Well, I feel like people like him sincerely believe that it is about race. It's just, I can't see it that way. And I don't know if it's because they've been conditioned that way for so long, or whether they had some personal incident happen to them a long time ago. But for, those of us who have not been indoctrinated like that, we don't see things in terms of skin color. And I just don't see how you can see it in terms of skin color when it was a black officer that arrested him.
Well, that's his shtick. Think about it. This is how he makes money. He makes money off this, whether it's George Floyd or Trayvon Martin, or, in St. Louis with Hands Up, Don't Shoot. I mean, he finds a way to get in the middle of all this stuff. And you're right. I mean, everything for him is racial, because that's where, like the old saying goes, people do that which they get rewarded for. He gets rewarded for stroking up the race animus.
Well, and I feel like these politicians, the governor, the mayor, the chief of police, they feel like this is catering to their excuse me. This is catering to their Democratic base. A lot of the Democratic base is very low information, and they react off of emotion. So if you get up and say, "We're here to stop racism," superficially to these voters, it sounds good. And they, some of these voters probably have guilt and white guilt because they've had it ingrained in them through the educational system, through society. And So they are like, well, this is how I can redeem myself. I can say that a bad white police officer was racist and we did something about it.
Right. Exactly. And so we'll go ahead and use him as the scapegoat. And here he is, 22. What do you get? 22 and a half years
Yep.
in prison. He's been shanked, I think, already a couple of times, which they knew as soon as they put him in a jail. I mean, police in jail is that's not a great recipe for safety. And so he's been attacked in jail. And you and I were talking about this before we went on the air, and that is that if Trump was to give him a pardon, then what's his liability? Because the liability doesn't end right there. There's a secondary liability that would happen to Derek Chauvin, right?
So even though he can't be put back in prison for a civil verdict against him, what will happen is he will get millions and millions and millions of dollars awarded against him, and he'll never be able to pay it. So, I'm looking ahead thinking, because it's so high profile, maybe some groups out there will try to do fundraising to pay off all of that debt so he can live his life out normally. But I mean, who knows? I mean, that's millions and millions of dollars. Now, didn't they do that for what's that he was 16 at the time, who shot and killed a violent rioter?
Oh, yes, right.
Kyle
Rittenhouse, Kyle Rittenhouse, was it?
Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I believe they did raise all of the money that he was going to have to owe. So it is possible.
Yeah, but you're talking, like you said, it's a lot of money involved. I mean, already the family received, of course, I'm sure Benjamin Crump got his nice share too, 27 million. I mean, the case hadn't even been settled, Rachel, as you'll recall, as reported by Liz Collins, and they went ahead and just expedited this settlement with the family for $27 million for this guy who was, like you said, he had a rap sheet 2 arms lengths long and was a human mess. And he gets 27, his family gets $27 million. It's unbelievable.
And they'll get that money because that's going to be coming from the city of Minneapolis taxpayers.
Right, exactly. And again, I mean, and this is the thing where, all things political is that people need to look at it and they say, okay, well, you feel like it didn't come out of your pocket, but it does. Somebody's going to pay for that 27 million. And you know what? It's not going to be Governor Walz paying it.
Well, and I want to let everybody know around the country too, just because you think the city of Minneapolis taxpayers are going to get stuck with a bill, because the federal government will earmark money for these blue states that misspend. I have this leftist friend who always likes to say, oh, it's all the right-wing states taking up all the federal dollars because y'all are on, in southern states and on welfare, blah, 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 blah. If you look at how the money gets distributed, it gets distributed to these blue states that misspend it because they're poor at managing pocketbooks. So it's this settlement will affect every taxpayer across the country.
Well, Rachel, as you may remember, I was born and raised in California, and it drives me nuts. I mean, I still have kids there and grandkids, and I'm praying for them every day because that state is such a mess. And you've got Gavin Newsom, and then of course you got the other knucklehead down in Los Angeles, Karen Bass. They can't manage, can't manage a fire emergency to make sure there's water in the fire hydrants. It's like, what did you do? Did you go to Maui to get trained by those knuckleheads over there that made sure that the fire hydrants were all out of water? So when you needed to put out a fire, you didn't have any water available to do that. And of course, he doesn't know anything about forest management, which, if you remember, in the first term of Donald Trump, Trump's meeting with them, and Newsom's guy tries to make it sound like, oh, well, you don't understand. He's trying to tell the president he didn't understand that, the way the forest works and, the natural brush and that. He was trying to, come off with his stupid narrative. And Trump just sat him down, says, you don't understand. This happens all the time. It's called forest management. It is the job of the forest people to go ahead and manage that brush so it doesn't ignite. People all over the world know how to do this. And you guys have been doing this decade after decade, the same stupid strategy that burns cities and costs everybody all kinds of money. And as you said, the taxpayers in the other 49 states are carrying the burden for this idiocy.
And I just heard from a friend in SoCal that main reservoir that was not full of water in the LA area is still empty. And what people don't realize either is you might be one of the lucky ones on your block whose home didn't burn down, even though all the other homes did. But guess what? Now your property value has just sunk and nobody wants to buy into that area. The process to get all the permits and rebuild the houses is so complicated in California that it's going to take years for those houses to get rebuilt. And who wants to buy there anyways if there is a future forest fire? So it's just ruined everybody in the area, even though those whose homes weren't burned down.
Well, you imagine what's the insurance going to be like for those homes? I mean, it's so expensive, especially at today's construction rates, everything else. As you say, regulations, California is, regulation nation in and of itself. And then you got Karen Bass, lying and saying, oh, no, we're passing these through. We'll get them done within a week. And, and when Trump had that kind of town hall with the people and they were saying, hey, we've been trying, for weeks. And he goes, that's not, what do you mean weeks? That's crazy. This needs to be done faster. Oh, yeah, we're going to do it faster. Oh, no. I mean, just again, the left, they just know how to lie. And I think this is what is ruining the day for them because they've lied so much, Rachel, and they're so disconnected from the truth. They can't tell the difference between a truth and a lie because they're so fixated and they're so used to lying to everybody. As you said, they convince themselves. And this is like, really? I mean, they convince themselves like, here we just in everyday political issues, 90-10 issues, and they're consistently on the short end of the proposition. We're for the 10%. We're for, grown men competing against young girls in sports. We're supporting men being in women's locker rooms. We're supporting open borders and opening up, our coffers to give them all kinds of health care, educate their children. What's the problem? I mean, they are consistently on the wrong end of all these policies.
Bill, I have to say it's been interesting watching the swap between the right and the left from when you and I were growing up until now, because when we were growing up, it was all sex, drugs, and rock and roll and Hollywood, and the liberals had all the cool people and they were the cool ones. Now it's completely different because they've gone too far. They're not just about sex. They're now about transgenders in, girls' bathrooms. And they're about all this freakish stuff. They're like pornography and prostitution everywhere in your face for your children. And people are like, enough, that's not sexy anymore. Now we have the whole Trump MAGA, sexy women on our side. I mean, it's been the bizarrest switch to me. And that's why I think people are fleeing the Democratic Party. I love to point out that Gen Z Hispanic males voted for Trump over Kamala Harris because their racism lies are no longer working. And I've always said, Bill, I find it interesting how the left always tries to paint us in terms of race, but everybody is mixed. You know what I mean? I mean, everybody is, you're part white, you're part Hispanic, you've got a part this, part that. We're not, I'm not just some typical white girl, It's just, that's not the way it is. So these mixed people who might have a white parent and a black parent, they don't want everybody hating on their white parent. I mean, that's what they're doing. And they finally gone too far because we're too mixed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And, and to your earlier point is that, and I think this is where the left is so caught in the weeds and they're so, I guess, ideologically fixed in yesterday that they haven't realized how the country has moved. It's no longer monolithic. This is why the racism card, the race card doesn't work anymore, because to your perfect point, you go ahead and you tell a young kid, and these stories anecdotally are shared all the time, where a young kid comes home from school and the kid's kind of confused and you go, hey, what happened? goes, well, the teacher told me that my dad is evil because he's white, and he's telling his black mother that this is what the teacher has taught him in class. What'd you learn from school today? Oh, I learned that my dad's a racist and all that. And he's saying that to his black mother. And, it's like, that's what I'm saying. They're so ideologically fixed in the America of many decades ago, the America that how many, I mean, you look at the affluence of minorities today. You could not have had this opportunity in any other country. The fact that, like it or not, but we did, we elected the first black president in hopes, I think, that we had thought, well, maybe he'll help us, heal the divide, heal the racism, and we can get beyond this, find it out. And unfortunately, he exacerbated the problem, made it worse. He didn't help. But as you say, and I think the proof's in the pudding, is people have practically looked at life the way it is, and the life that the Democrats envision for America, especially now, Rachel. I mean, you've got Mamdani out of New York. I mean, they're all out of the closet now. I mean, they're not even hiding anything. They're just saying, yeah, I'm a communist. So what? I'm a socialist. So what? Or I'm a kind of socialist, so what? So what's the problem with, the government taking over and owning everything, you'll own nothing. You're going to have a great time because everybody's going to share. It's going to be kumbaya, and it's all brought to you by the communists that have been so successful in world history, where we read time and time again how these nations have thrived under the rule of communism, right?
And, Elon Musk, who's been absolutely tremendous for the right, like, I am just so grateful for him for making X the only major free speech platform in the world. He
saved us, Rachel. He saved us. Really, and I think it's one of the underwritten or waiting to be written stories is how Elon Musk saved America.
I write so many articles about him because I see it. I mean, he promoted my account on X because I'm an independent journalism, before I'd been shadow banned, but he always likes to point out in his post that the highest earning Americans there's like 9 or something nationalities above Caucasians. So all these different other, nationalities are earning more than whites. And so that Mamdani, that crazy socialist running for, mayor of New York, that guy says that he wants to tax, all these high income districts, and everybody thinks it's going to hurt whites. But the reality is it's going to hurt Indians. It's going to hurt, all these different nationalities that actually really do make the high money and not the whites.
Right. And guess what? Don't stand in the way at the exits of New York, because you're going to get run over as people are leaving. And all you're doing is seeing U-Haul trucks, just like California. Moving out of there. I think at one point, California, I think a year or 2 years ago, was the number one, I guess, I don't know if you want to say, exporter of U-Haul trucks,
I've written articles about that. In my home state of Washington, I was just there all last week. I can't believe all of my old friends who are finally leaving. They've had enough. I'll tell you, their main place is Idaho. They're all moving to Idaho since that's still very conservative.
Well, you get baked potatoes there. Best baked potatoes. Oh, my goodness.
Hey, my sister-in-law represents the Potato Association, so always eat potatoes, guys.
Well, yeah, eat potatoes. But I'm telling you, if you've had a potato from Idaho, because I went on a ski trip one time and I go through Idaho and I had a baked potato. Oh my God, that was heaven. I mean, it was like in the old days when you used to go to Hawaii and you could get pineapple right off the vine, so to speak, right out of the ground there. It was like, oh, this is the best ever. And oh my goodness, yes. Okay, well, send some love to your sister. That's great. Yeah, because I definitely have a lot of, but I do have a special loyalty for Idaho potatoes for that reason.
I just have a special loyalty to their politics because I figure, if they keep stealing Arizona and then they eventually take over Florida, I guess that'll be my default state I'm going to have to move to.
Right. Yeah. You and me both, because I'm here in Florida right now and we're watching a lot of people, from up north come down and we say, okay, fine, you're welcome, but leave your politics at the border. You know, don't bring your politics in here, because the reason you're running away, you know, from that insanity, you know, that's why you're leaving it. You don't want the same thing here. I mean, where things are under control, law and order is happening. We got a great governor, so we're very blessed as to, you know, what's going on. But you know, we'll see what's happening. I mean, the Democrats are trying to do, you know, double down on all this, you know, gerrymandering. But you know, I wrote about it here recently, Rachel, that they may have backed themselves in a corner in complaining about this because it really exposes what the Democratic Party is all about. They've been gerrymandering, you know, for decades here. And you see some of these states, the way they've been gerrymandered, it's like, what? It's like, how does that make any sense? I mean, you got some of these states, you got 46% of the electorate voting Republican, and they have zero representation in Congress. How do you do that?
Well, you know what I like to do is I like to stir up a nest within the Democrats about that, because here in Arizona, we have the same thing. And what I've learned is these districts are gerrymandered for a Democrat Latino.
Yeah.
So the white Democrats don't get along with them. The white Democrats don't get along with the Democrat minorities. And so if you try to put a white person running into one of these gerrymandered districts as a Democrat, I mean, the infighting is just vicious. And, you know, I think we should stoke it up, because, you know, the reality is the Democrats are the party of racism, you know, the Jim Crow, slavery. I mean, this is just an extension of it, and they can pretend all they want that they're the party friendly to minorities, but just look at their infighting. You know, I'm very active in the GOP here in Arizona, and our other main MAGA reporter, Christy Kelly, is Black. And we don't have any issues with racism in our Republican Party. We all get along like one big family.
Yeah. Well, what I love is that, and which came really clear, the Sydney Sweeney, you know, controversy, you know, but for over half the country, it wasn't a controversy. It's just, hey, here's a beautiful young girl in a pair of jeans. Wow, that's nice. And I got to tell you, Rachel, it was so refreshing, the response that came out. I mean, under the Biden administration, regular folks couldn't have said, you know what's the problem? She's a beautiful girl. It's a great ad. I mean, like, I guess if Sydney Sweeney would have, you know, somehow been a trans or, you know, came out with a Bud Light can, it would have been okay. But because she was white, blonde, blue-eyed, and beautiful, that was a problem. It disturbed their sensibilities. It triggered them. It's crazy.
I have to give the left some credit on that one. I consider myself a really creative person. I could have never come up with that being racist. How did they come up with these things? I mean, it was so
but it goes back to what we were saying earlier, Rachel. When your mindset and your ideology is so fixed, that's the filter. You see everything that way as racist. And the thing is that, you know, and I felt for some of these women, you know, on the left, that they would come out and they were so emotional and so angry. And I thought, oh, you poor thing. I mean, what a waste of energy. And I just kept thinking, I'm going, man, I'm sure glad I'm not married to you.
Well, that's why they all end up on, you know, antidepressants and other prescription drugs. I mean, they've shown now that white liberal women are on those types of medications more than any other demographic of the population. And all that hatred, it's just destroying their life. It's destroying their health. These are the type of women that are going to end up with dementia and in nursing homes, because you can't have that type of toxic attitude your whole life. It takes a toll on your body. So guess what? Us taxpayers, we're going to end up getting to pay for these sick, toxic women when they become elderly.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, if you're not already going to church, you probably want to go to church. Put them on your prayer list, because one way or another, like you said, we're going to end up having to be responsible for them. And to me, it's so sad to think, I mean, this is another humanoid going through life like the rest of us. I mean, life is tough enough as it is. And the fact that you would embrace such negativity and such toxicity to ruin your life and everything associated with it. I mean, what a shame. I mean, you could have been a great sister, a great mother, an aunt, a contributor to your family, but instead you just want to be angry for what, when politics gets that crazy and nuts, anything for that matter, that drives you so ideologically, off the reservation, then, you need to give yourself a break. Go enjoy a happy hour at some place where it's nice and peaceful, and enjoy yourself for a moment, and kind of reorganize your thoughts for the sake of your own self, number one, and maybe some new friends that you might make along the way, Rachel.
Well, I've been saying for many years now that I believe a lot of the toxic left is just acting out their own mental illnesses in the political realm, since it's considered more acceptable.
Yeah.
If you act crazy and hurt people because you're hurting yourself, then people will think you're mental. But if you just act it out in the political realm and you focus your hatred on Republicans, then that's considered societally acceptable. And where it's just doubly wrong is the fact that they are hurting other people. Lawfare, classic example. These toxic feminists come after people with lawfare and destroy their lives and give them PTSD and destroy their finances. So it's a very evil, vicious cycle. And I just see it increasing. What scares me, Bill, is the second Trump or a Republican is out of the presidential office, they're just going to continue the lawfare. I believe, they're going to come back and they're going to prosecute Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino. It's coming. I mean, Harmeet Dillon. I mean, I admire these people for serving in those high positions, because if Trump had asked me to serve in a position like that, I would have been terrified. I've already been through lawfare. I know how they operate better than anyone because I write about it all the time. And it's just a ticking time bomb until they come back and they resume, what they've been getting away with under Democrat control.
Yeah. Thank you for your service, Rachel. Right. We're gonna ruin your life with all this lawfare. And you're exactly right. I mean, it's terrible what they've done. And here we are now, as we're opening up the books and realizing out of the burn bag, the evidence and the paper trail of what James Comey and even Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, what they all, colluded to do to this country. And I look at, I'll tell you, I agree with a majority of Americans, and that is they want consequences, and they want this administration to take it to the max. And Barack Obama might get away with it because of the case that Trump went through earlier in terms of presidential immunity. But I think that what Barack Obama was involved in was so egregious. And you and I talked about this years ago when he gave a nod and a wink to Lois Lerner, and what he did in affecting, and it goes to this day. I said that we're probably up to 9 voting cycles that was affected for what Obama did in a nod and a wink to Lois Lerner and how she refused to give tax exemption to the Tea Party groups.
Well, and maybe I need to write an article and analyze this, because I haven't actually researched this yet. But isn't treason considered a high crime and misdemeanor that a president can be prosecuted for?
I thought so.
So I think there is an argument that he could be prosecuted. Now, between you and me, we know how politics works. Look what happened to Hillary Clinton. Absolutely nothing. So right. I don't think, unless a president is caught with a 5-year-old boy in bed, I don't think they're ever going to do anything to a president or former president. Even the Clinton body count, nothing happened to the Clinton.
I know. Exactly. They just keep mounting up. And here they are, speaking of which, add Jeffrey Epstein to that body count. Maybe not associated directly with Clinton's, God only knows. But even Ghislaine Maxwell said there's no way that he committed suicide. And who knew him better than her, right?
Well, and I always say, whether he did commit suicide or didn't commit suicide, it really doesn't matter, because, they're never going to prosecute the Clintons for it if they did it. The whole point is we all just need to ensure that there's nothing incriminated against Trump in those files. And I've said all along, I don't believe there is, because the Biden administration would have released the dirt. And so many people have come forward and exonerated Trump at this point. Trump kicked Epstein out of Mar-a-Lago in 2007, years and years ago, because he was harassing the teenage girl. So if Trump was into teenage girls, I don't think he would have done that. So I don't see any evidence, and I love Elon Musk, but I think he's naive. I think he's wrong on this issue. Trump is way too smart to get involved with teenage girls.
Right, and I think Elon. I just write it off for emotion. He just got a little emotional, and now look at him. I think what yesterday announced what he's putting $5 million in a PAC to support Trump candidates. So maybe the bros are coming back.
Well, I've said all along, because I read every single post Elon ever does, since I'm so grateful to him. But I believe he's just a little too new to politics. He's a little naive about it. And I think he lets the MSM get to him. I see his posts where he rails against the MSM all the time. And so the MSM writes these lies about how Trump and Elon aren't getting along. They did it from the beginning. They tried to undermine him. And I think Elon bought into the lies. He bought into the lies that Trump is saying bad things about him, and his advisors just hate him, and they're trying to get him out and move him out. I think that was a load of BS. I don't think there was ever a split with him and Trump. I think finally it all came to a head because Elon freaked out, and that's why they got into the feud. But hopefully Elon's been talking to enough people who are behind the scenes and saying, this has all been lies, Elon. You hate the fake news, so why are you believing the fake news?
Exactly. See, this is what we love about the truth. Eventually it comes out, and it's something, and this is, I respect Donald Trump. Is he hyperbolic at times? I get it. He's a showman, and he may extend and exaggerate a bit. That doesn't bother me so much, but I think at the core, he's a man of integrity. And I know for some people they might hear, oh, Martinez, what drink are you on? But I see him as being rather integrous. I mean, you look at him, and I said this even when he ran the first time. If you want to really get a good idea of the man, look at his kids.
Compared to the Bidens.
Oh my gosh, what a mess! Yeah, I know, the poor guy. What a mess. But anyway, we've got about 3.5 minutes left here, and getting back to the situation with Derek Chauvin and the thing that he's in. And, again, our thanks to Liz Collins. I mean, what a great job she did on this documentary. And if you haven't seen it, The Fall of Minneapolis, you need to see it to get, a clear-minded perspective on what happened. And the thing is that this is such a dangerous ideology that Rachel and I have been talking about, because this has impacted everything. I mean, for so long, Rachel, you've been reporting on it. We have as well, in talking about the bureaucracy and how corrupt it is, and that every 3-letter agency in our government has been compromised. And you see the fall of Minneapolis, you see this, and you go, oh my God, this is America. This is where we are.
It's a must watch. It's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my life. And afterwards, I think people should then move on and watch Ben Shapiro's docuseries. He's done several videos about this, because I think this is just starting to simmer back up to the surface. I think Trump is going to pardon him because the case was so egregious. And, I hope he gets justice. And thank you, Bill, for having me on to further get the word out, because, a lot of people are too scared to cover it. They think they're going to get called a racist, or they've just never delved into it. And, I would have not delved into it if I just hadn't happened to have watched this documentary.
Well, you watch it, it's hard to deny. I mean, you have to really just make a decision and say, okay, am I going to stick my head in the sand, or am I going to take a stand for justice? Because, at the base of freedom is justice, and justice in America has been compromised. And as a result, our freedom has been compromised. This is what we're living with right now. And thank God for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has given us a window of opportunity to right some of these wrongs, to connect ourselves with the truth in such a way to where justice can again fortify our freedoms. And we can truly, that's really at the basis of making America great again, is it not?
It absolutely is. And as I like to point out, you might criticize Trump for his hyperbole, but he basically has done more for this country than almost any president ever. I think he's at least as great as Reagan at this point.
Well, I think that maybe after all is said and done, whether he gets a Nobel Peace Prize or not, he's certainly deserving of it. I mean, especially when you have a president who got one just for walking in the office. And I think it was even before he walked in the Oval Office, they gave him a Nobel Peace Prize. It's just absurd.
They are no longer meaningful. You know, like I always say, I'll never get a Pulitzer, and I don't care, because the type of crap they give Pulitzers to, we're running out of time, but I wrote an article about one of the bogus.
Yeah. Well, it's, they reward themselves, you know, and they definitely have tarnished the award that was at one time in our lives as we were growing up was a cherished award. But this is when liberals are out of control and they're making the decisions of and for and by themselves. This is what you get. And it's unfortunate, especially for all the previous Nobel Prize, Peace Prize winners. Rachel Alexander, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate the time and the insight, and congratulations on all the great things you're doing. Remind everybody of the website they can go to be in touch.
Just go to my website, Intellectual Conservative. It carries both my Arizona Sun-Times and Town Hall articles.
There she is, Rachel Alexander, former Assistant Attorney General for the state of Arizona. Thank you, Rachel. Take care. Be well.
Thank you. You too. God bless.
God bless. Rachel Alexander for coming on the show. What a great lady. I'll tell you, she is so hardworking and does a great job. And you need to, if she's not on your list of regular readership, you will be enlarged and blessed for having come in contact with her insight and her writings. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing a part of your day with us. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you. May he be gracious unto you and give you peace. Have a great day.